Talking about Twitter all day and also following the sports stories of the day like James Harrison. Remember, he ended last season as the NFL's most heavily fined player, $100,000. He had never been fined more than $5,000, and then he was hit with a $75,000 hit against the Browns. Hasn't gotten over those fines from NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. We heard Chris Carter earlier on SportsCenter say no one would like if a man took that much money out of your paycheck. Here's a quote from the Men's Journal article. We'll talk to the author in a second. My rep is James Harrison, mean son of a, who loves hitting the heck out of people. But up until last year, there was no word of me being dirty till Roger Goodell, who's a crook and a puppet, said I was the dirtiest player in the league. If that man was on fire and I had to put him out, I wouldn't do it. I hate him and will never respect him. Steelers released a statement. Art Rooney II. I have not yet seen the article in Men's Journal, nor have I spoken to James Harrison about his comments. We will discuss the situation at the appropriate time when permitted, once the labor situation is resolved. The NFL also has not commented on the Harrison story. We've been talking about the power of Twitter all day. Harrison also mentioned quarterback Ben Roethlisberger for an interception and for Rashad Mendenhall, who had obviously a very big fumble, as it turned out, in the Super Bowl. And the power of Twitter. Mendenhall is able to comment right away. Sure, he was watching SportsCenter this morning, referring to his teammate. Lastly, I don't have a problem with what James Harrison's confirmed Twitter link, by the way, said, because I know him. But I want you guys to check this out. That was followed by a link showing Mendenhall had only 2 fumbles last season on 324 rushing attempts. Doesn't quite back up the fumble machine characterization by Harrison, but again, he did have a turnover, the big fumble in the Super Bowl. All right, we're joined now by Men's Journal contributing editor Paul Solotaroff, who interviewed Harrison and wrote this story in Men's Journal. Paul, how do you think the article depicts James Harrison?
Oh, James. First of all, I was just outside erecting a statue to him, as every sports writer in America should be doing at this moment. James is fearlessly honest, he is passionate, and my God, does he believe he was wronged by Goodell. I, for one, join him in that view.
What was his tone? Because obviously we can't see tone in magazine pieces.
Well, James is famous for his growl. He's famous for his bark. They're all a good deal more dangerous than his bite. James is affectionately known by his Steelers teammates as Debo, the bully from the Friday movie series, and he's very happy to front that scowl. But as I said, it's largely put on. What he's dead serious about, though, is the purity of the way he plays the game. James is the first guy to talk seriously, to talk honestly, to talk earnestly about violence in the NFL. And I applaud him for it. It's time we have an open, honest national conversation about how dangerous this game really is if it's played exactly the way it's designed to be.
Shown holding 2 guns in the photo accompanying the story. How was that idea generated?
Well, James has a fairly extensive gun collection. He's a hunter. Somewhere or other, there's a 1,500-pound bison wending its way to him, stuffed, that he shot last off-season. It's a fairly apt metaphor for a guy who was locked and loaded. Again, that said, James is completely convinced that he's got a legitimate beef with Roger Goodell. Look, these are guys who are trained from the age of 8 to be runaway locomotives. And suddenly in week 6, I think, of last season, Goodell said, stop right there. From now on, you are all to play like Thomas the Tank. And not only did Goodell make this kind of arbitrary break from the way the game is going to be called and the way it's going to be fined, but he singled out James Harrison. He fined him $75 for the Massacre hit. And I've looked at the Massacre hit over 100 times. There is nothing dirty about that shot, any more than his shot on Josh Cribbs later on.
So does Harrison...
So it's clear
Go ahead. Well, does Harrison offer any explanation, you know, the concussion issue and the rash of concussions? What's his opinion on that?
Absolutely says, look, and, you know, the piece is a very serious and nuanced look at how we've gotten to this place in the NFL. And one of the ways we've gotten here is there is this tacit agreement now amongst players throughout the league that you do not hit below the waist. You tackle high, you tackle between the numbers, you tackle from the bottom of the numbers up, because what's the worst thing that happens if you sustain a helmet-on-helmet hit? You get a concussion, which statistics say is a one-game injury. You hit a guy in the knees, you risk tearing his MCL, his ACL. That's a year and a half. And as James said, if somebody hits me high, I'll pay his fine, but please don't hit me low and tear my knee up, because that's a life-threatening injury. If I can't run, I can't feed my family.
And in the end, how would you put an exclamation point, put some punctuation on your piece, and how you'd like people to take it, maybe what they might be missing?
I think I'd really like people to read it beginning to end. As I said, James is the first guy to talk about what actually happens out there on the field. I mean, he's busy, you know, kind of describing how these helmet-to-helmet hits happen, where you go to hit a guy between the numbers, at the last second, he lowers his helmet to adjust to your impact, and you wind up being unable to adjust to his adjustment. I think we should applaud James Harrison for his honesty, for his manliness, and I think we should all chip in and pay whatever fine is coming from Roger Goodell.
Men's Journal contributing editor Paul Solotaroff, the James Harrison story, the story of the day. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's my great pleasure, guys.